Hello and welcome to Steven University. This week we discussed Lars and the Cool Kids. That was the episode's name. What do you think, Chris? I should describe it, shouldn't I? This is an episode where Steven is shown that his mother, who he is told saw beauty in all things, kept this sort of gross moss stuff and looked after it inexplicably because it's gross. Because they're really going to drive that point home. Because it makes the ending work better. And basically, following that, he bumps into Lars, the guy that works at the donut shop, who is basically, there's a group of cool kids who are all characters we've very briefly glimpsed before, but none of which we've really gotten to know, including like Kiki and Sour Cream and Mayor Dewey's son. And basically, Lars wants to get in with their crew, but he's too self-conscious of himself to do it, and Steven, in his naivety, just walks up like, hey, can we come along? And because they're teenagers, they go on a little joyridey thing, and they go to the area where this potentially dangerous moss is. Steven tries to warn them not to go near it, and in the end, they all sort of get covered in it. Lars starts sort of criticizing Steven because it was, there's this brilliant moment where he talks about Steven's weird mom, and he's like, you can't speak about my mom. I didn't even get to know my mom. It's really kind of heartbreaking when you think about it. And because his mum saw beauty and everything, Steven thinks there's got to be a solution. He brings the moss to the mound she used to work on it on, and when the sun hits it, the moss that's sort of engulfed them all blooms, and the sky sort of is full of these flowers that all have little gems in the center. And it's sort of like it's a nice little story. But I'm curious what Chris thought.
I enjoyed the episode a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I found myself thinking, more than any other episode of this show, who is this aimed at? Because so many of the cool kids stuff, it was so adult in its humor. And it was so I get that because I've met people like that, because I'm at an age where I would have met people like that. But surely the majority of the people this show is aimed at wouldn't have, and I kind of respect its boldness in the way that, in the way that J.K. Rowling didn't. I can't believe I'm comparing it to Harry Potter, but in the way J.K. Rowling didn't write down to the audience, and she's always said, no, look at the most classic of kids' stories, Charlotte's Web, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. None of them dumbed anything down.
Absolutely. And
I kind of respect it in a similar way. It's that, this isn't dumbed down, but it is wow, because there's a portion where he chats to the kids, and then they go in the car and they go past things, and I think probably my favorite joke was he doesn't kiss me that way. Aw, don't arm me. Not getting daddy kisses made me the man I am today. That's such an adult joke. It's such a sense of humor aimed at people my age, and I'm just what, in a really good way comparatively to the first episode and those early episodes where I'm what am I watching? I was thinking the same thing, but it was more what am I watching? It was more just bemusement at it. And yeah, again, tantalizing us and hinting a bit about his mum. Yes, I agree with you that it was heartbreaking, that I didn't even know my mum, but it was also a little bit hammy, let's be honest.
Sure.
Him yelling it was a little bit it was a little bit EastEnders. You're not my mother. Yes, I am.
True, but it's an 11-minute long
reference
cartoon.
Yeah, true.
Didn't have a lot of time to really do it in a more subtle way. Then again, to be fair though, to your point, the show hasn't managed to do more complex things subtler in the past. So maybe it's that. Maybe that's an expectation of the show rather than a criticism.
Yeah, it was just it being yelled. I was a bit okay, we get it. I think if it had just delivered those exact lines quieter, I think that would have been more powerful for me personally.
Gotcha.
And I liked him being I liked the donut guy being your mum. I liked his first, it's not even conceived before that Steven has a mum. He's what? Oh, ooh. Or maybe because he's a bit older, he knew it, I don't know. But, I thought it was really, really good. Unique. Very, even for this show, a very unique episode, I thought. but thoroughly enjoyable. And if you ask me about like where I am, it's a weird one because it's like if I had like 6 episodes like this in a row, I'd be like, I'm so in. But it felt unique as opposed to the norm for me at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoyed it. But was very bemused by the whole thing as well.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of great comedy come out of because basically, for those who don't remember, the part of the premise of the episode is that like Lars is so self-conscious that he keeps adjusting himself to what he thinks they want, and he keeps getting caught out. Like Steven's like, everyone buckle up, and Lars is like, oh, seatbelts are lame, and they're like, hey, this car don't move, safety first. like, and then it's like there's the whole thing with snakes, which I thought was funny, which is they're like, like they call it gross, and he's like, yeah, I hate snakes. And I'm like, huh, you hate snakes? They're pretty cool. Like there's lots of moments where Lars he's trying too hard basically, and I think that's a really cool thing because like not only is it like amusing to me and you as someone who knows people like that who try too hard to be something they're not to impress people, but for kids it has another side of it, which is shining a light on that to them. Look how easy it is for Steven to just be himself and make friends. He's just being himself, and it's fine. Like that's what a great message to send to kids. Lars, on the other hand, who is trying far too hard, has much less success. Like, it's
that's a really good point.
It's one of those things where you don't think about it necessarily when you're watching it, but you were saying like, who is this for? I mean, my honest to God answer is everyone. I think the show is so multi-layered that I don't think there is an audience this show doesn't cater to. Maybe like elderly people is like the only age group I can think of, and I mean like proper elderly, and I'm not even sure they would really dislike it. Do you know what I mean? They might be confused by it, or maybe end up bemused like yourself this week. But like, I don't know. I think it really works on a lot of levels, and I think that's the reason the show has this rabid fan base that is made up of young people who watch it on Cartoon Network, who don't really have a lot of internet access, and then the sort of crazy people like myself who are on the subreddits and like pulling it apart and analyzing it. It works on a lot of levels, and I'm pushing 30, and it's one of my favorite shows. So whatever they're doing, it's working in terms of who they're aiming it at. And I particularly this one, that visual as well at the end, which I hinted at last week, didn't I? I said this has one of my favorite visuals in it. When the sun hits them and the flowers bloom and they sort of float away and they're just in the sky floating around them as they stand on that peak. I think that's such a great visual. It's probably not the very best visual the show has ever done, but it's a really nice one, and it's quite. For me, I don't think it's actually iconic in the like fandom of the show, but it's a very iconic to me. When I think of Steven Universe and I run through images in my head, that's one of the images I often think of. It's kind of hard to separate that one from the show for me personally. There's just something about it that really lands. I don't know if it's that it's such a unique visual or that it's particularly well drawn. I don't really know. I can't really tell you what I like about it. I suppose sometimes
I think it has all the connotations connected to his mum as well. I think that's quite nice. And one thing we haven't touched upon was a story that really doesn't involve the other gems at all, to the point where they don't even come in and rescue him or provide the solution that rescues him. I thought that was really nice as well.
Mm-hmm. Again, you're seeing the slow growth of the character because because he's becoming more capable now. He's not straight away running to the gems to solve gemmy problems. Magic Moss, he's like, I got this.
And a clever way of doing it, because if the gems had appeared and helped, then Lars and Steven being friends at the end doesn't really make much sense, because Steven's not got them out of the situation.
Exactly.
One thing on Lars I've never noticed is the brilliant, and if you've said this in an earlier episode, I apologise, but his ears are donut shaped. I've never noticed that before, but it's amazing.
Well, he's wearing those, what do they call those things? The like earring things that aren't earrings. They just sort of push your ear out.
Yeah, like hoop.
What are those things?
Ear
piercings. You know what I mean. Where you do a piercing and then you stretch it and put one like a hoop thing in it. Those people are going to look really odd when they're old. Like in 20 years time, well, not 20 years time, like 40, 50 years time, when all the people who got those when I was young grow up, they have these big wig dangly bits of skin under their ear. They're going to look odd.
I don't want to think about that.
Just saying. You're right. They've given him donut ears. It's true. This is true. I don't think I've ever mentioned it on the podcast, but his ears do something like that. It's cool because you'll slowly get to meet all these characters in individual episodes. Sour Cream has a nice backstory. Medu, his son, does too. Kiki has had an episode recently, actually, dedicated to her. So these are all people you'll see again. Some in together, some individually. It all sort of works out. It's a show that's had a very consistent. It's like, it feels to me like on day one they had the whole cast in mind, because even in the the episode with the fries, the Frybo, Lars was in the background of the restaurant. And remember that scene you thought was particularly funny a few weeks ago when Stephen went into that thing and they were thinking, and the guy that has a blog, Keep Beach City Weird, he was sort of saying that whole scene where he was saying Stephen's pregnant. I'm pretty sure Kiki was in that restaurant or bar. Cool. I'm pretty sure Kiki was in that scene.
It's really like it's building a town in the same way that, like, it's weird.
It's a bit Simpsons-esque, isn't it?
That's just what I was going to say. And I was going to say, these days, what's weird and a shame is that it feels like these days Simpsons gets more negative press than positive. Like, do you know, if you bring up Simpsons, people are like, oh, it should just end and all of that stuff. But they built a world and they built a town full of characters that you can reel off. And, you know, as much as people love Family Guy and stuff, I'm willing to bet more people could name Simpsons characters than potentially any other show except a soap opera. Yeah. Like, you know, I'd be willing to bet you could name more Simpsons characters probably than you could, you know, name Friends characters or Big Bang Theory characters or anything like that. And it feels like there's an element of this to it.
Yeah, I think what's good about... Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's that slow build of consistent recurring characters. They don't necessarily always have a plot, but they're always there and it's always the same people. So you learn little bits about them as you go, and then eventually they'll explore them in like whole episodes, and then you'll really get a good grip of who they are. You know, like you remember a few weeks ago we saw an episode called Bubble Buddies, where he met Connie. Made friends with Connie. She's not going anywhere. She'll be back. It's just, they don't deal with the people. Not everyone shows up every week, basically.
Which is quite Simpsons-esque.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm getting at. So, and I think Simpsons pioneered that, and I think that Steven Universe is just taking that formula and using it and doing it well. But it's pretty good. It's pretty effective. Because I mean, I remember when we got to the episode where we met Thingy in his blog, you know, Keep Beach City Weird. Ronaldo, when we got to that episode where he showed up and was talking about his blog and you were talking about how funny you found him, I remember saying, do you remember him from the Fry episode? And you're like, what? Because he is the son of the fry cook that is allowed in the kitchen. You know how there were two sons? There's like Pete or PT, and then there's the older brother. And they've all got fry-shaped hair as well, which I think is hilarious. Well, Ronaldo's the brother that's allowed to do the frying. So, like, it's all linked. It's not coincidence.
What's powerful about that is that if they ever want to do or build to, because obviously a lot of the time the town's in danger, but if they want to do an episode where like there's a real like looming threat on the whole town, if you've got to know the whole town, then that's so much more powerful and so much more interesting.
I'm not going to say much here, but I'm going to say bullseye.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong about the potential for that. So I mean, I think that it's one of the more powerful aspects of the show. And the thing is as well, they're all really interesting characters, and they all have quite distinct personalities. They're not generic now and will be fleshed out in individual episodes. They all already seem to have pretty clear personalities, and I kind of love that about them. Like, especially Sour Cream this week when he took the bottoms of his trousers off and he was like, pants turn into shorts or whatever. And then like he was on he was on that thing and he was raving. Like, that's you've already got a good sense of who he is, like without much work, you know.
No, really, really enjoyed it, and a very layered episode.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think this is another threshold. I think you're at a point now where like if it stays at this quality, you're in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like the last 3 episodes have been really good.
Yeah, they really have actually. Because I'm thinking back and I'm thinking, what? So it was giant woman,
giant woman,
giant girlfriend. That'd be a very different episode. I really want to see a giant woman for her giant boobs. Like that'd be a very different episode. So it was giant woman. What was the last one? God. I'm having a brain fart moment. Couldn't have been that good. I've forgotten it.
So Many Birthdays?
That's right, the birthdays one, which is also very good. Had a slightly problematic ending we discussed, but mostly that's a great episode too. So, and then of course this one, which is a sort of one of the ones I always think of when I think of these early episodes. So, yeah,
I think this is one of the most rewatchable episodes I've watched.
Yeah,
I'd go back and watch this today.
You know what? I think that's absolutely fair. I think that's really fair, and it's because there's a lot of jokes and a lot of subtext. Like, I correct me if I'm wrong here, but I got the impression you didn't even really think about the sort of lesson.
No, not at all.
About being yourself. It sounds like you didn't pick up on that, which is amazing, because to me that's like, it's a big part of it. But of course, it makes perfect sense that you wouldn't.
Dan, you're smart. Jesus.
No. No, I just mean like to me, who's seen it multiple times. I've not figured that layer out. That layer has become more apparent to me. But of course, on the initial viewing, I probably had the same reaction you did. And it didn't quite. I didn't quite put it together that way. The next episode we're going to see is called Onion Trade, and you might remember the character of Onion. He's shown up 2-3 times already, but he's only ever been referenced. He's a small kid that doesn't really speak, and in Bubble Buddies, he's the one that used the harpoon to try and break the bubble.
Oh yeah.
So he's in this next episode, and it's called Onion Trade.
Cool.
So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy that one as well. And then I think it's Stephen the Swordfighter, which is another episode I'm very fond of. So we're in a good run.
We're in a solid run of eps.
Indeed. There you go. So we'll leave it there. Should we do the awkward ending, Chris?
Yeah, here it is.
Why now?
I feel pretty awkward. Do you?
Yeah. Goodbye, everyone.
See you later.
Do you think they're gone? No, they're still listening.
I would be if I was listening.
See you around. Do you think they're still there?
No, they're gone now.